$300. That was the entire decision. Not the apartment, not the neighborhood, not the gym in the lobby, not the rooftop terrace, not the granite countertops. $300. And 30 years later, that decision was worth more than many people have saved for retirement. But here's the strange part. Even after I show you the number, there is a good chance you would still choose the apartment. And honestly, you might be right. That is what makes this one of the most interesting financial decisions most people ever make, because the apartment is not the problem. The problem is something almost nobody sees. Imagine you get a raise. Not a huge raise, nothing life-changing, just enough to make you feel like you're moving forward. You check your bank account. You feel a little lighter, a little more confident. And then something strange happens. The apartment that seemed too expensive 6 months ago suddenly starts making perfect sense. You open the listing, the kitchen is bigger, the commute is shorter, the building has a gym, the neighborhood feels safer, the photos look like a future version of your life. And for the first time, the number doesn't feel expensive. It feels reasonable. That's important, because the financial decisions that change your life rarely feel reckless. They feel reasonable. Nobody destroys their future by making obviously terrible choices. People change their future through choices that make perfect sense in the moment. So you tour the apartment, you walk through the kitchen, you stand in the living room, you picture yourself there, and then you see the number, $300 more per month. Not $3,000, not $30,000, $300, the raise covers it, the math works, the lease gets signed, end of story. Except it isn't, because the lease agreement is showing you the wrong number. The lease says $300. The future says something else entirely. We'll come back to that number. For now, I want you to think about something. What exactly did you buy? Most people would answer a bigger apartment, a better location, a shorter commute, and they're right. But that's only half the transaction, because every financial decision has two sides. There is the thing you receive, and there is the thing you replace. The strange thing about money is that we only ever see one side. You can see the apartment, you can touch the countertops, you can enjoy the shorter walk to work, you can feel the improvement immediately. What you replaced is invisible. You cannot see it. You cannot touch it. You cannot walk through it. And because you cannot see it, your brain treats it as less real. This is where things become interesting. Because what you replaced was not just $300, it was a future. Every recurring expense quietly competes against a future version of your life, a future investment account, a future level of freedom, a future set of options, a future version of you. The apartment feels real. The future does not, at least not yet. And human beings are wired to choose what feels real. This is not a discipline problem. It is not a willpower problem. It is psychology. Researchers call it present bias. Present bias is our tendency to value immediate rewards more highly than future rewards. The apartment exists today. The future exists decades from now. One can be experienced immediately. The other can only be imagined. And when those two compete for the same money, the present usually wins. Not because people are irresponsible, because they are human. This is also why lifestyle inflation is so powerful. Lifestyle inflation sounds irresponsible when people talk about it online. But in reality, it rarely looks irresponsible. It looks like improvement. A raise arrives. You move into a better apartment. Another raise arrives. You upgrade your car. Another raise arrives. You travel a little more. You eat at nicer places. You pay for convenience. You improve your life, one decision at a time, and every individual decision feels completely justified. Because most of them are. The problem appears when you zoom out. 10 years pass. Your income is dramatically higher. Your lifestyle is dramatically better. And yet the feeling of financial freedom never quite arrives. Why? Because freedom and income are not the same thing. This is one of the most misunderstood ideas in personal finance. People think freedom comes from earning more. Sometimes it does, but often it doesn't. Because freedom is not income. Freedom is the gap between what you earn and what you need. If your income doubles but your obligations double too, the gap never changes. And if the gap never changes, your life doesn't feel dramatically different. This is why two people with very different salaries can experience similar financial stress. One earns $70,000. One earns $150,000. The higher earner should feel dramatically richer. Sometimes they don't, because the obligations grew alongside the income. The apartment got bigger, the car got nicer, the subscriptions multiplied, the vacations expanded, the baseline moved. And that's where housing becomes important, because housing is different. Housing is usually the largest expense in a person's life. And unlike most purchases, housing tends to pull other expenses along with it. A more expensive apartment often means higher utilities, different expectations, different social environments, different spending habits, different definitions of normal. One decision quietly changes many others. The apartment stops being an apartment. It becomes a baseline. And baselines are powerful because they stop feeling optional. Think about the first time you walked into a nicer apartment. You noticed everything: the kitchen, the lighting, the layout, the space. Now imagine living there for 5 years. You barely notice any of it. The excitement disappears. The upgrade becomes ordinary. This is called hedonic adaptation. Human beings adapt to improvements incredibly quickly. The thing that once felt luxurious becomes normal, then expected, then required. The apartment becomes the apartment, nothing more, but the payment remains. And this cycle repeats throughout life, not because people are foolish, because people adapt. Which finally brings us back to the number. Remember the $300? $300 invested every month for 30 years, at an average return of 8% becomes roughly $450,000. $450,000. Not because $300 is a lot, because 30 years is a long time, and compounding is patient. Now here's the important part. The lesson is not that you should never upgrade your apartment. That would be a terrible lesson. Sometimes the apartment is absolutely worth it. Sometimes the shorter commute improves your life. Sometimes the safer neighborhood improves your life. Sometimes the extra space improves your relationships. Sometimes the apartment is the right decision. The lesson is not to avoid the decision. The lesson is to actually make it consciously. Most people never compare the apartment against what it replaces. They compare it against their current rent. That's a completely different calculation. The next time you get a raise, before you open a single listing, ask yourself a different question. Not, can I afford this apartment? Ask, what is this apartment replacing? Because that answer rarely appears anywhere obvious. It isn't on the lease, it isn't on the listing, it isn't in the photos. It exists only in the future that quietly stops getting funded the moment you sign. Most people know exactly what their apartment costs per month. Almost nobody knows what it costs per decade, and the decade number is usually the one that shapes your future. The apartment was never the point. The raise was never the point. The real question is this: if every financial decision is quietly purchasing one future while eliminating another, which future are you buying right now? Because the most expensive decisions in life rarely look expensive. They look reasonable. That's why almost nobody notices them. Until years later. I'm Arthur, and this is Arthur Explains Money. If this changed the way you think about your next raise, your next apartment, or your next upgrade, subscribe and join me for the next exploration into money, wealth, and human behavior. I'll see you in the next one.